Take a long screwdriver out to your lawn tomorrow morning. 8 inches, flathead, the one rattling around in the bottom of your toolbox. Push it straight down into the grass. Steady hand pressure, no hammer. On the strip of lawn I am standing on right now, it slides down 4 inches before it meets anything at all. 60 feet away, across the property line, same street, same rain, same subdivision soil scraped flat by the same bulldozer in 1972, that screwdriver stops at 1 inch, like hitting a kitchen counter. 4 inches against 1. That gap right there is the whole difference between a lawn that holds its color through a 3-week dry spell in July and a lawn that goes to straw in 9 days. And almost none of it came out of a bag. Now, the title of this video says forbidden. And before we go one step further, I want to be straight with you about what I mean by that, because I am not going to hand you a conspiracy. Nobody outlawed anything. There is no cover-up, no buried study, no man in a suit hiding the truth about grass. What I mean is quieter than that, and honestly a little sadder. The best fertilizer your lawn will ever get is already sitting in your yard. It is produced fresh every single week, all season long, and it costs nothing. And because nobody can bag it, ship it, shelve it, or put a price sticker on it, nobody advertises it. There is no marketing budget behind free. That is not a conspiracy. That is arithmetic. A thing that cannot be sold does not get promoted, and a thing nobody promotes slowly disappears from the advice. Not because it stopped working, because nobody had a reason to keep saying it out loud. I have watched that happen in my own lifetime. Back in the late 1980s, the Texas Agricultural Extension Service ran a homeowner program called Don't Bag It, teaching people to leave their clippings on the lawn. County offices handed the pamphlets out for free. Ask somebody 30 years old today what Don't Bag It was. You will get a blank look. If you remember those pamphlets, do me a favor and say so down in the comments. I would like to know how many of us are still out here. When a lawn starts looking tired, almost everybody asks the same question. What should I buy to feed it? And I want to say this kindly, because I asked that same question myself for about 20 years. It is the wrong question. Grass does not eat fertilizer. Not really. Grass eats what the life in the soil hands it. Here is the honest version of what a bag of quick-release nitrogen does. It dissolves. The roots take up what they can reach. The lawn colors up in about 10 days, and you feel like a genius. Then it rains. A good share of what is left moves down past the root zone, and a month later the color fades and you are back at the store. Nothing got built. No structure, no organic matter, no water holding capacity. You rented a color for a month. And I want to be careful here, because there is a claim going around that synthetic fertilizer poisons the life in your soil. Used at label rates, it does not. Dr. Linda Chalker-Scott at Washington State University has been clear about that. Normal applications will not sterilize your ground. The real problem is not poison. It is that the bag skips a step. It feeds the plant and walks straight past the soil, and the soil is the part that has to carry you through August. So let me tell you what is down there, because this is the part that changed lawn care for me completely. The USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service publishes something called the Soil Biology Primer. In it, they put a number on the thing under your feet. 1 teaspoon of productive soil generally holds somewhere between 100 million and 1 billion bacteria. A teaspoon. Spread that across an acre, and the mass of those bacteria comes out roughly equal to 2 dairy cows standing in your yard. You do not feed them. You do not water them. They never get sick, and they work every hour of every day for nothing. Here is what that workforce actually does for you. They take dead material apart, old roots, clippings, leaf litter. And in taking it apart, they release nitrogen and potassium and sulfur in exactly the slow, steady trickle a grass root is built to use. Then there are the fungi. Mycorrhizal fungi thread right into grass roots and run out into the soil as filaments finer than any root hair could be, reaching water and phosphorus in pore spaces your grass could never physically get into. Your root system gets bigger without the plant spending a thing on it. And here is the part that matters most when the rain stops. As those organisms live and die, they leave behind sticky compounds. The Natural Resources Conservation Service names one of them glomalin. Those compounds glue soil particles into little crumbs, and between the crumbs are pores, and pores hold water. That is it. That is the sponge. That is what my screwdriver was sliding through. So, the first free ingredient, and the one that truly earns the word forbidden. Your grass clippings. Not fermented, not brewed, not strained through cheesecloth, just left exactly where the mower drops them. Here are the real numbers, and every one of these you can look up yourself. Grass clippings run about 4% nitrogen, 2% potassium, 1% phosphorus by dry weight. Research out of the University of Missouri found that clippings return to the lawn supply up to a quarter of that lawn's total fertilizer needs for the entire year. A quarter of it. For nothing. Penn State went further. Over a 3-year study on Kentucky bluegrass, the clippings alone contained somewhere between 46 and 59% of the nitrogen that had been applied as fertilizer. Better than half of what you paid for is sitting in that bag you are dragging to the curb. And the University of Connecticut found that nitrogen from clippings starts showing up in new growth inside of about 2 weeks. This is not a someday payoff. This is this month. Now, somebody is already thinking it, because I thought it for 30 years myself. Clippings cause thatch. The University of Georgia settled that one. Thatch is built out of stems and shoots and roots, the tough, slow rotting parts. Clipping blades are better than 3/4 water, and they are gone in days. How to do it right. Sharp blade. Mow when the grass is dry. Mow often enough that you are never taking off more than 1/3 of the height at once. And if your mower has a mulching plug, put it in. The mistake that ruins the whole thing. Waiting until the lawn is shin-high and then cutting it all in one go on a wet Saturday afternoon. Then you get wet ropes of clippings lying in mats, smothering the grass underneath. That is not grass cycling. That is neglect with a lawnmower. Now I have to take something away from you, and I would rather do it honestly here than let you find out the hard way in your own backyard. You have probably seen the trick. Half fill a 5-gallon bucket with fresh clippings, cover them with water, let it sit 3 to 5 days until it goes dark and smells like a hog lot. Strain it, dilute it, spray it on the lawn. I understand the appeal completely. It looks like alchemy. It smells like it must be working. Here is what the research says. Dr. Chalker Scott has looked hard at brewed plant teas, and in terms of nutrients delivered and how the plant responds, the difference between the tea and plain water comes out very close to nothing. You strained off a weak solution and left most of the value in the bucket. And there is a second thing, and this one I am not willing to soften for anybody. Oregon State University Extension has reported that brewed teas, particularly ones with sugar added to them, have been found to contain E. coli and salmonella. Think about what that bucket is. Warm, sweet, low oxygen, sitting 3 days. That is not a fertilizer. That is a growth medium. And then it gets sprayed across ground that grandchildren roll around on, and dogs lie down in, and you walk across barefoot in June. So here is my honest downgrade, because there is a real practice buried in there, and I do not want to throw it out. Clippings genuinely are valuable. If you have more than the lawn can take, after a rainy stretch when everything grew at once, spread them thin as a mulch in your flower beds, or turn them into the compost pile with something brown. Feed them to the soil as a solid. Do not brew them and mist them over the yard. Same conversation, different jar. Blackstrap molasses. The claim goes like this. Stir 2 tablespoons into a gallon of water, pour it on, and the bacteria in your soil multiply several times over, and that population explosion builds the crumbly water-holding ground we talked about. The first half of that is true. Bacteria genuinely do eat simple sugar, and they genuinely do multiply fast. In good conditions, a bacterial population can double in well under an hour. The problem is the second half. That sugar is gone in about 2 days. And when the food runs out, the population you just grew starves right back down to about where it started. It is a boom and then a bust. You did not build a workforce. You threw a party. Dr. Chalker Scott, who has spent a whole career sorting garden fact from garden marketing, has been blunt about the molasses claims made for landscapes. The phrase she reached for was snake oil, and you will hear people cite a study showing 4 times the bacteria from molasses. I went looking for it. I could not put my hands on a real, named, verifiable source for that figure, and I will not repeat a number I cannot stand behind. If somebody watching has the actual citation, post it and I will read it. Here is the way I think about it now, and it might be the most useful sentence in this whole video. Sugar is a meal. Compost is a kitchen. One of them is gone by Thursday. The other one keeps cooking for years. Which brings me to the thing that actually does what the molasses only promises. A 1/4 inch of compost, raked across your lawn. That is it. That is the entire technique. And it happens to be the best tested thing in this whole video. There is a study in the International Turfgrass Society Research Journal, run on a mature Kentucky bluegrass lawn in Wisconsin over 3 years, comparing compost top dressing against conventional and organic fertilizers. Composted yard waste improved both the lawn and the physical properties of the soil. And, importantly for anybody living near water, 3 years of it did not push soil phosphorus into the range that causes trouble downstream. The physical properties of the soil. Read that again. That is the screwdriver. That is the sponge. That is the one thing a bag of nitrogen cannot buy you at any price. And in a great many towns that compost is free, or close to it, because it is your own neighborhood's leaves and clippings coming back around to you. Now the mistake, and this one has a real trial behind it. A University of California study on Bermuda grass tested top dressing at 1/8 of an inch, 1/4, 1/2, and a full inch. The 1/2 inch and the full inch buried the turf, and the quality stayed down for months while the grass fought its way back out. More is not better here. More is worse, and slowly. 1/4 inch is a dusting. When you are finished, you should still see grass blades standing up through it everywhere. Drag the back of a leaf rake over it, or a stiff push broom, and work it down to the soil surface. Late summer into early autumn is the best window across most of the country. There is one thing worth doing right before you top dress, and it is the direct fix for that 1-inch screwdriver. Core aeration, not spike shoes. Spikes push soil sideways and make compaction worse. You want the machine, or the hand tool, that pulls actual plugs out and leaves them on the surface looking like something a goose left behind. Leave the plugs where they fall. They break apart in a couple of weeks and go right back where they came from. What you have done is opened several thousand doorways into ground that water had been running off of. Air gets in, water gets in. Roots follow both down. And when you spread that 1/4 inch of compost afterward, a good share of it falls into those holes, which is exactly where you want organic matter. Not on top. Down where the roots live. Aeration and top dressing are also two of the practices turf specialists list as directly supporting mycorrhizal fungi in lawns, right alongside proper mowing height and decent drainage. Once a year is plenty. If your ground is heavy clay, or the lawn gets walked on hard, once a year is not really optional. Let me say a little more about those fungi, because there is money to be saved right here. Both families of lawn grass, cool season and warm season, form partnerships with mycorrhizal fungi. The fungus threads into the root, and in exchange for a little sugar, it brings back water and phosphorus from places that root would never reach alone, which is exactly why you will see packets of mycorrhizal inoculant on the shelf at the garden center for $25. Here is my honest red. If you are seeding bare ground or building a brand new bed, an inoculant can have a place. But on an established lawn sitting on living soil, the fungi are already down there. They have been there since before the house was built. You are not short of fungi. What you are short of is conditions. So do not buy the packet. Buy nothing at all. Just stop doing the 4 things that suppress them. Heavy loads of quick-release soluble fertilizer, compacted ground, scalping the grass short, and leaving the soil bare and hot. You already own the partner. All you have to do is quit stepping on it. Now the one that is going to cost some of you a bag of Epsom salt you have already bought, and I am sorry about that. You have heard that a large share of lawns, and I have seen 70% claimed outright, are short on magnesium, and that 2 tablespoons of Epsom salt in a gallon of water will green things up inside 10 days. That number is backwards. Magnesium shortage in home lawns is genuinely uncommon. Dr. Clint Waltz, the turfgrass specialist at the University of Georgia, describes it as a non-issue for most homeowners. Dr. Chalker Scott lines up with that. Use magnesium sulfate when a soil test shows you need it, and not otherwise. And here is the part that ought to stop you cold. Over-applying magnesium sulfate can cause salt injury to the grass, and it can interfere with your lawn taking up iron and boron and potassium. Sit with that a second. The product being sold to fix your yellow lawn can, applied blind, produce a yellow lawn by locking out the iron. I am not telling you Epsom salt is fake. Magnesium sits right at the center of every chlorophyll molecule in every blade out there. When a plant truly is short of magnesium, magnesium sulfate is the correct answer, and it works. I am telling you that you do not know whether you are short of it, and neither do I. Which brings us to the cheapest thing in this entire video. $15 or $20. A cup of dirt. Your county extension office. Some of you remember when that office was a real room with a real person in it. A rack of pamphlets by the door. Somebody who would walk out to your car to look at a leaf you brought in a paper sack. 4-H met in the back on Tuesday nights. Most of those offices are still there. Most of them still run soil tests, and they will still tell you the truth about your own ground for less than the cost of one bag of fertilizer. Take a trowel and pull small samples from 6 or 8 spots around the lawn, mix them in a clean bucket, dry the mix on newspaper, and send in a cup. What comes back is your Fa, your organic matter percentage, your phosphorus and potassium, and recommendations written for your soil in your county. Watch that EF number especially. Most lawn grasses want to sit around 6 to 7. Get above roughly 7, and iron starts binding into forms the roots cannot pull in, and the grass yellows between the veins while the veins stay green, even though the iron is right there in the ground the whole time. That is not a fertilizer problem. That is a chemistry problem, and no bag on the shelf fixes it if you never measure it. Nearly everything else in this video is free. This one costs you a stamp and a sandwich. Do it once, and you will stop guessing for the next 5 years. 2 habits left, and both are free, and both of them protect everything we have built up to now. The first one is your mower deck. Raise it. For cool season grasses, the bluegrasses and fescues and ryegrass, 3 inches or a little better. For warm season grasses, Bermuda and zoysia and Saint, Augustin and centipede, lower, in the range of 1.5 to 2.5 inches depending on species. And whatever height you settle on, never take more than 1/3 of the blade in a single cut. That is the oldest rule in turf, and nobody has improved on it yet. But here is why it matters for us, and this is the part the mowing videos always skip. Everything we have talked about tonight, the bacteria, the fungal threads, the sticky compounds, the crumb structure, lives in the top inch of soil. That is a thin and fragile neighborhood. Tall grass throws shade across it. It stays cooler, it stays damper, and the work down there keeps going right through the hot part of the day. Scalp that lawn to 1.5 inches in the middle of July, and you have taken the roof off the building. Surface temperature climbs, the top inch dries out, and the biology in it goes quiet. Every dollar an hour you spent feeding that soil, undone in one afternoon behind a mower. Tall grass shades out weed seeds too. Most of them need light hitting the soil surface to germinate at all. A dense tall lawn is a herbicide you never have to buy. The second habit, water deep and water seldom. About 1 inch of water, once or twice a week, delivered in one long soaking. Not 15 minutes every evening after supper. Roots follow moisture. If the water is always sitting in the top inch, that is where the roots stay, and a lawn with its roots in the top inch has no reserves at all when the sky closes up in July. Soak it deep and the roots chase it down, and then they are drinking out of ground the sun cannot reach. Set an empty tuna can out on the lawn while the sprinkler runs. When the can is full, you are done. That trick is older than I am, and it still works. And now the variable that decides whether all of this works dramatically for you or barely at all. It is the reason 2 neighbors can do the exact same things and get completely different results. The kind of grass you have. Cool season grasses, Kentucky bluegrass and the fescues and perennial ryegrass cover the northern half of the country. They grow best in mild weather. And here is the part almost nobody acts on. Their most important root building happens in autumn, not spring. Warm season grasses, Bermuda and zoysia and Saint, Augustin and centipede, cover the south. They do their real growing in serious heat, and they go dormant when the ground cools off. If you are not certain which one you have, wait for the first hard frost. Cool season grass stays green straight through it. Warm season grass browns off within days. That one morning tells you everything. And here is why it matters so much for us. Soil biology tracks soil temperature. Spreading compost on frozen or dormant ground does very little, because the whole workforce is asleep. So, if you have cool season grass, the single most valuable thing you will do all year is aerate and top dress in late summer into early autumn. Labor Day through about the middle of October across most of the north. That is when the roots are being built that will decide how your lawn handles next July. If you have warm season grass, your window is late spring into early summer, once the ground has genuinely warmed up and the grass is growing hard. Everybody pours their effort into April. April is not where the drought gets won. One more free thing, and then I will let you go. When the leaves come down this fall, do not rake all of those to the curb either. Run the mower over them instead. 2 or 3 passes turns them into confetti, and that confetti drops down into the lawn and feeds the very same organisms. There is a limit. You cannot mulch 6 inches of wet oak leaves into a lawn and expect the grass to survive underneath. If the layer is still too deep to see grass through after mowing, take some off. But a normal fall of leaves, chopped up fine, is free carbon delivered to your door by the trees, on schedule, every single year. My grandfather never raked a leaf in his life, and his ground was black 6 inches down. He would not have known the word glomalin if you had handed it to him on a card. He just knew the leaves belonged there. So let me bring you back to that screwdriver. None of what I have told you tonight is fast. I want to be honest about that, because you have been promised fast about 400 times by now, and I expect you are tired of it. The first year, you will notice small things. The lawn holds its green maybe a week longer into a dry stretch. It comes back a little quicker after a rain. Your mowing gets easier because you are not hauling bags around anymore. The second year, the screwdriver goes deeper. That is the year you can measure it. 2 inches, maybe 3, where it used to stop dead at 1. Earthworm count goes up, and after a hard rain, the water disappears into the ground instead of running off down the driveway. By the third year, something has changed that is harder to put into words. The lawn stops being a thing you rescue and starts being a thing that mostly takes care of itself. Drought comes through and it just holds. Not because you fed the grass, because you built the ground underneath it, 1/4 inch at a time. And here is what I want to leave you with. Every single thing in this video that was real was free, or very close to it. Clippings, leaves, compost off the yard waste pile. 1/4 inch at a time. A mower deck raised 2 notches, 1 long soaking a week instead of a sprinkle every night. The things that cost money were mostly the things that did not work. The people who taught me to garden came up in the Victory Garden years, when you could not buy your way out of anything, so you learned how the ground actually worked instead. They fed the soil because there was nothing else to feed it with. Turns out they were not making do. They were right. 2 things before you go. First, I have put everything from tonight into a blueprint you can print and hang in the garage. The method table with the why and the how and the mistake for each one. A seasonal calendar for both grass types, honest year 1 through year 3 expectations, and every source named so you can check my work yourself. The link is below. Second, do the screwdriver test. This week, push it in, see where it stops, and tell me the number in the comments. 1 inch, 2, 4. Tell me your state and whether your ground runs sandy or heavy clay, because the answer shifts a good deal between Georgia sand and Ohio clay, and I do read them. And if you remember your mother or your dad leaving the clippings, or the county agent who first told them to, I would truly love to hear about it. Feed the soil. The grass takes care of itself. I will see you next time.